on Playtime Chats. Today we're looking at loneliness within families, and that's the topic that we're going to be sort of delving into today. So why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us where you're from?
Yeah, my name's Lucy, as you said. I'm 37. I'm originally from Bristol, but I'm living in Newport.
Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, when I was 22, I actually ended up in prison. My life just kind of spiraled out of control. But when I was in prison, I had an amazing experience. I had an experience that changed my life. I was so broken and I was so lonely and I was so low. And I remember in my prison cell crying one night, thinking I'm going to have to end it all because I can't go on like this. And basically, a chaplain come to see me the next day, and she spoke to me and she told me about Jesus, and everything that she was telling me was more than words. And she left my prison cell, and I was left there with a little bit of hope from what she was saying. And it was like I only needed a little bit of hope to carry on. And from that moment, you know, I would read the Bible and everything would speak to me. And I just felt God so powerfully, even though I never knew anything about God, but I knew something was happening inside. And basically, I came out of prison and I went to a Christian rehab. And God really done a work in my life. And I ended up getting a job there. And then I ended up becoming a manager, running my own home. And that's actually where I met my husband, David.
And that's when you fell in love, I understand.
Yeah, we fell in love and it was like no other relationship. It was so amazing. He was such an amazing guy. We ended up getting married in 2012, which was a year after we met. And we ended up running a home together then, one of the rehab homes. But in July 2014, he ended up getting diagnosed with throat cancer. He had a sore throat and it started in March and it wouldn't go away. And he kept going to the doctors. And then it was July that they confirmed he had throat cancer. And we actually found out that same week that I was pregnant because we had been trying for a baby because we wanted to start a family. So we were devastated about the cancer, but we felt so blessed because obviously we were going to have a baby and that would get us through it. But unfortunately, I had a miscarriage. So that was hard because that same week he started chemo. And you know, so we never knew if we'd ever be able to have a baby after that. But the NHS froze his sperm so that we could go through IVF in the future if we wanted to. But then after, you know, he had so much treatment, he was so poorly. For 5 years, this went on, the cancer journey. In between all the treatments, we were still trying for a baby, but it didn't happen. But basically, IVF was going to be our last resort. But he just got sicker and sicker. And then the last tumour was so nasty that treatment didn't respond to it and it couldn't be removed.
So what happened then?
Well, he ended up, this tumour burst his artery in his neck and he ended up in the hospice. I was with him, and that was for 2 weeks, basically, he was dying. It was the most difficult time of my life. But basically, while we were in the hospice, one of the last times he was conscious, he actually apologised that he'd never been able to give me a baby. And I said, David, I'm still going to have your baby. I promise you, I'm still going to go through IVF. And he was so happy and so proud. He sat there with his thumb up, the biggest grin on his face, almost like he'd become a father already. Yeah. And just sat back, smiling, nodding his head.
Okay. And then sadly he passed away.
He did, yeah. Obviously, again, it was the hardest time in my life. Yeah, and it was 3 days before Christmas as well. So Christmas was a bit of more of an emotional time.
Yeah. So it's devastating to lose someone so close to you. Tell us about how you found out you were having twins.
Yeah, well, after he died, I was just desperate to go and start IVF. So I had to wait a little time so that everybody knew I wasn't rushing into it out of grief. And I basically went through IVF, got pregnant. I had a miscarriage, sadly. And then I went through it again as soon as I could. And basically, when it come time to put an embryo back in, my body was out of sync, which meant that my cycle was out of sync, which meant that I wouldn't get pregnant. And unfortunately, the embryos weren't good enough to freeze for a later date. So the NHS, the clinic, they were adamant that they had to be destroyed. And I was devastated. And I knew that this was going to work. So I begged and I begged and I begged. And I said, look, even if I have another miscarriage, I would rather that and know that we've given them a chance, because I actually said I believe that God can do a miracle, and I've been pleading with God, I've been praying, and I just got to give one a chance. So they went away and they discussed it, and they come back and they said we're going to put 2 in, because there's less than a 5% chance of it working, and this has not worked before when people are at your stage. And so that's what they did. And I never actually considered or even thought that I might end up with twins, because I was just anxious to get to 2 weeks later to do a pregnancy test. I did, it was positive. And then I was just desperate to get to the 7-week scan to see if they had survived, because that's where I had a miscarriage before. But when I went in for the 7-week scan, they couldn't believe that there was 2 heartbeats.
It's amazing.
I burst into tears because I didn't even think that was a possibility. And the nurses all burst into tears because they knew my journey. One of them went running out, come running back in with loads more nurses. There was about 8 or 9 of us in the room. Everyone was in tears. And the doctor just couldn't believe it. The top doctor, she was explaining to me then why this shouldn't have happened.
Wow.
But then they discharged me and said, now it's classed as a normal pregnancy. So I was so happy, obviously anxious throughout the whole pregnancy. I felt quite alone. Yeah.
So the babies were born in lockdown.
Yeah.
And you're a single mum.
Yeah.
With no family very near to you.
Oh, it's been a challenge.
It's been a challenge, I can imagine. And so we've heard in the media recently, the Royal Foundation has brought out a report for the early years and saying that parental loneliness has increased from 38% to 63%. I mean, that's staggering, isn't it? But what's your experience of loneliness during lockdown, and what support have you been given?
Well, during pregnancy, actually, towards the end of my pregnancy was the beginning of lockdown, but I didn't really have any support from a midwife during pregnancy. Bit of a complicated situation, but the midwife that I was assigned wouldn't deal with me because it was a multiple pregnancy. Very long story.
Yeah.
Basically it was quite, difficult. I kept speaking to the hospital saying I should be being checked, because I didn't know, I'd never been pregnant before and gone through this, and they kept taking me back. I was going backwards and forwards and nobody would deal with me. So that was quite a lonely time, because I wanted these babies more than anything.
Of course you did.
Hope of having these that kept me alive, basically, since my husband died. It was the only thing I wanted to live for. And now I got them, but are they okay? I didn't know. And so, yeah, that was really hard. So I actually found a house church that somebody recommended to me. And when I went, I fit in and I loved it. And I've had a lot of support from them all the way through IVF, through pregnancy, and through obviously now. but because of lockdown, it's only texts, and we do Zoom once a week. So again, it is really hard. It's quite a lonely time.
So what got you through the early part of having the boys? You know, obviously there wasn't much contact with people. You're saying that the midwife, health visitors was very scarce. So what got you through?
Well, Google became my best friend, because, you know, I had to learn about babies. I'd never actually even changed a nappy in my life.
Wow.
And even actually through pregnancy, I didn't want to learn about babies, because I couldn't imagine them actually being here. So I was just focusing on eating healthy, letting them listen to music and keeping my belly warm. And but then when they arrived, again, no support because of lockdown, because of restrictions. We weren't having that care that I think you would usually get when you've just had a baby. So I would have to Google everything. Everything I'm doing, everything I've learned has been through Google. And
that's incredible. Yeah. Amazing that you've got this far with 2 little boys.
Yeah,
incredible. So you're connecting into a church toddler group via the church. Obviously you haven't been able to go there up until sort of hopefully when it opens in the future. How are you feeling about going to somewhere like that?
I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be really good, obviously, for me to get advice and support, and for the boys as well to grow up in an environment around other Christians. And it'd be nice to just have adult company, to be honest. And yeah, to be around people going through the similar thing that I am, you know, living that similar life, a mum or parents with young children. And I've actually I've hooked into a parenting group being run by that church, and it's been lovely. So I've got to meet a few of them, and I already feel so welcomed and a real part of it, even though I've not met them in person. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Lucy, you're such a positive person. You know, many of us would probably find it really hard to go through what you've gone through, but you've come out the other end so positive. What would you say that's kept you going?
Well, it's obviously been a really unbelievably difficult journey. I'll never get over losing my husband. I don't think I'll ever be the same again, but I am happy again. And it's, you know, having these boys, having a family, and realizing how precious life is. We've got to make the most of our loved ones and really kind of take a step back and look at things from a perspective, you know, because life is so precious and time goes so quick. And I'm just so thankful. Like, a lot of people have said to me, oh, you know, about losing your husband, how can you go on, and it's not right, it's not fair. But I'm just so thankful that we had each other for the time that we did. It was 6 years, but it was the most amazing 6 years. I could never have dreamt of, even though he was poorly. It was that love that we had was so incredible. Like, he gave me enough love to last me a lifetime. That's what I feel like. And now I've got the gift of his 2 little miracles. And it's just for me, I would say, look at things from the right perspective. Because when we're lonely and hurting or going through something difficult, it's so easy to look at things from that perspective. But the bigger picture is that life is amazing.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing your story. I know that it's been difficult, really difficult time for you, but we really thank you for being a part of Playtime Chats and just sharing with us. We wish you all the best, and the boys, as you enter into a parent and toddler group. Keep us in touch into how it goes, and we'd love to hear from you in the future. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.